Hey y'all, I just wanted to jump on here real quick and let you know that I put together a compilation video of the interviews that I've done, and I think I got them all, and it's just short clips from each interview, and then also just some of the evidence that I captured throughout 2024. I wanted to do this for y'all for New Year's, and I just wanted to thank everyone for subscribing and watching. It blows my mind to think that y'all like to watch an old country girl talk about Bigfoot, but I appreciate it, and I thank y'all, and I love y'all, and I hope the good Lord blesses y'all this new year. So please take care, and God bless you all.
Whatever they had used there, and I heard that crunch. So I turned around, and I want to say probably 25, 30 feet from me was this thing standing on two legs, and it just scared me so bad. And I just froze. It really scared me so bad. I didn't know what it was. I would guess it was probably 6 foot plus a little bit, but it wasn't super huge. It was all hairy. It was black in the arms, and they were hanging down past his knees. They were kind of moving, and I don't know if it was doing the swaying thing. I didn't stare at it for a long time, but it was just, I could see the hair hanging on the arms. And I don't know.
It was dipping down on its hands and knees, and when I looked back over, it was dipping its face towards the river, getting a drink, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a Bigfoot, like, because this thing was easily 9 feet tall, really? Like leaned over into the water. This one was not very bulky though, compared to what I normally hear people talk about. Like, it was really, I just couldn't believe it whenever I'd seen it in person. I was so close to it. I was probably maybe 50 feet away from it. Like, wow. I think I'd have gotten so fast if I wanted to. Wow. I was there all alone.
Looked down at the water, and there it was in broad daylight, and it was squatted down, and it was dipping water up and drinking it. And I didn't know what I seen. I didn't know what it was, but I just stood there looking at it, and it glanced up at me. It stood up, and it just tilted its head back and forth, looking at me like it was trying to figure out what I was. And I was trying to figure out what it was. But it was a dark red color. It was approximately, I'd say, 6 foot tall. And you could tell by looking at it that it wasn't a grown, you could tell it was young. And I just sat there on the back looking at it. And it just stood there looking at me for, it seemed like a long time. I'm sure it wasn't. But I just trying to figure out what I was looking at.
Looked up on the high bank about 100 yards away. Out stepped this Bigfoot from behind the big oak tree. He takes one step, turns, and goes into the woods. The woods is still dark. So I had him picture framed. I seen his whole left side and his back. He's gray, young, muscular. I would say he's probably 9 foot tall.
We're starting to do good. But anyways, had been quiet for a while there. We was catching fish, and all of a sudden I seen that, and it gets up there closer to me, or closer to us, and right straight across from us. And all of a sudden it stops, it spotted us. And it gets down, and like somebody stretching out, trying to get a better look, from one angle to the next. And I said, do you see it? He said, I'm watching it. And we both figured out we're watching old Harry, what we call. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he stands back up like a man. backs up into this willow tree that was pretty good size, you know, and kind of disappears into that willow tree. But I thought he was still standing there for a long time, and I was like, well, he's just gonna stand there and watch us thing, ain't he? He was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, he's still standing there at that tree, ain't he? In that willow tree. And he goes, no, he's walking up the sandbar way up there. You don't see him? I was like, oh, I do now. But I thought he was still right there in that willow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that was weird. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was definitely something way bigger than us.
Yeah. About how big would you say?
I'm going to say anywhere from 8 to 9 foot, possibly 10 or bigger. But it looked about like 9 or 10 maybe.
Yeah.
I know it was way bigger than us, a human.
Yeah.
And bigger bodied.
Yeah.
As well.
I had previously interviewed Jared, and he was with Joseph when they were fishing and saw the Sasquatch on the sandbar. So I will be sharing with you his account of the story.
Me and my uncle was catfishing on the river. It was night and real clear skies, full moon, and we was sitting there fishing and heard some bushes snap and looked across the river, and here come something real big walking out into the sandbar there and got down by the river and squatted down sitting there watching us. And it looked like a big old cow standing up over there, but whatever it was squatted down. And it sat there for about 25 minutes sitting there watching us and got up and disappeared into the bushes.
When it stood up, about how tall did it look?
About 9 foot.
Could you tell anything about the shoulders?
Very wide.
Very wide.
Real long hair.
Real long hair. I guess you couldn't tell what color, though.
No, not really. Real dark looking.
Real dark. Did you ever hear any noises?
Nothing other than winds breaking.
Did you ever smell anything?
No.
Nothing. Okay, Jared. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All of a sudden, about 8 foot in front of me, there was a white orb that appeared about 5 or 6 inches above the water and just dropped down into the water, and it made a really loud noise, loud enough that Bradley turned around to see what it was, and it was gone. It just was there and it was gone. And I looked up in the trees. There was no trees or none of the limbs or leaves were moving to make me think that it came from above, because I was looking straight ahead and it just appeared out of nowhere and dropped down into the water. At that point, Bradley and I started backing out of the creek, and that's when we started hearing another noise off in the distance.
It was like, you know when the T-Rex moves on Jurassic Park, how it's loud? It sounded like that noise from about 3 miles ago, or away, and there was like a little bit of leaves crunching. It wasn't that loud because it's not fall, but there was a little bit with that loud like T-Rex stomp, and it did every so often like there was something moving out there. And that night we went out exploring on our mule and 4-wheeler, and we came back because it was about to storm, and Mom heard the noise.
Well, whenever you heard the noise, it hadn't started raining real hard yet.
No, it was like 2 trees that were kind of hitting together, but it sounded like it was far out in the woods, and I heard it twice. The first time I was walking, and the second time I kind of stopped to look, and that's when I heard it again. So I was just kind of looking out in the woods, and about the same area that Bradley had showed me where they saw the orb in the creek, I was looking out there, and it sounded like there was another sound where trees were hitting, but it wasn't as loud, and it sounded like it came from that area. And then all of a sudden I saw like a really bright light. It was kind of like the flash that's on a phone camera, but it stayed lit up for a second, and by the time I really focused on it, it disappeared.
We done that, and as soon as we crossed the creek, I turned and I heard wrestling where it was. I said, get to the fence and go. Get back to the vehicle and go. And we got all the way to the gate across this field. Remind yourself, it's probably about 300, 400 yards from where we were. And so we booked it across this field. And when we were running, I'd turn around periodically. I didn't have my light on, and I could see it. I could see it coming, and it was on two legs. It was coming running. And we were probably halfway across this field. When I first seen it, it was coming up out of the creek. So my best guess is it done something with that deer before it even worried about us. And because, well, when it comes to survival, you're going to worry about food before anything else. So it ended up coming after us. We got all the way to the gate, and I just happened to turn around. We were about to cross it, and I seen it. It was probably 70 yards. And I grabbed them behind me, and I started rebuking. I rebuked in the name of Jesus Christ. And because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know at the exact moment of what I was witnessing. I didn't know what creature it was coming after us. But I just knew that the only person that could save us was God. Mm-hmm. So, and when I opened my eyes, that happening, I was expecting it to be 20 yards and less right on top of us, and it wasn't. And I got to looking at where to go, and I was freaking out, I was panicking at this moment. And I got to looking back towards the left side of the field, where this field basically dog-legged back to the left. And I looked back in that dog leg, and it was going back towards that creek, going back down in. And I grabbed them girls, and we got out of there. And I've never stepped foot back in that patch of timber again. Mm-hmm. And I hope nobody ever has to encounter that, what I did. But when it was running across that field at me, it looked like it was 10 to 12 foot tall.
Really?
Yeah. And it was the biggest thing I've ever seen. It was bigger than the first.
I'm trolling over by the jungle area of the lake, and I just happened to look up, and back in the woods in that corner, not too far from where that rock was launched at me, I saw one in the middle of the day.
Wow.
On the 4th of July. And my brain would not even let me identify what it was at first. I'm like, well, why is Hulk Hogan back there? But he's bigger than that, and he's black as night. You know what? And it took me a couple of days to really put that in my mind that I actually saw one. Because I've never seen one. But this thing was every bit, and I only saw it for just a flash, just a split second.
Yeah. First knock, and the first thing you're going to hear is a cow, and then right after the cow you will hear a knock, and I'm going to play this 3 times. Okay, that's knock number 1. Knock number 2, and I will play it 3 times. This is the 3rd knock, and it's the one that I said that sounded like bamboo hitting bamboo. On here it sounds like a little different. It kind of sounds like a horn in a way, but it was definitely a knock. And then right after that you will hear another knock, and I will play this 3 times. from over there. Maybe something right there, I don't know.